about to get killed or raped.
She's alive.
Echoes call from hollow halls, a voice that creeps and softly crawls. Time stands still, the air is...
Imagine walking into a gym, stepping into an elevator, or even strolling down your own street, and suddenly realizing that someone is watching you, someone who will not leave you alone. For most people, stalking feels like something out of a movie, but for the victims in the cases you are about to hear, it was terrifyingly real. From teenagers cornered in fitness centers, to women dragged by their hair in suburban neighborhoods, to survivors who fought back with every ounce of strength they had. These stories are caught on camera, exposing just how quickly an ordinary day can turn into a nightmare. Starting with number 1. In May of 2023, a 14-year-old girl walked into an LA fitness gym in Miami. She had been dropped off by her father to work out with friends. For her and her family, it was supposed to be a safe routine. Instead, what happened inside those gym walls would change everything. Cameras inside the gym captured what happened. They showed Richard Bosch, who was 22 years old at the time, following the girl around the facility. He stared at her, asked invasive questions, and refused to leave her alone. The girl eventually tried to move into a different area of the gym, a boxing room that was isolated from the main floor. That is where Bosch cornered her. The camera captured him touching her inappropriately and pinned her against the wall. She screamed and struggled to escape, finally breaking free long enough to call her father in tears.
Please help me! Please help me!
Police were notified right away. Bosch was arrested and charged. Through a plea agreement, he admitted guilt to a felony battery charge. In December of 2023, he was sentenced to 4 years of probation, but only weeks into 2025, he was back in police custody for violating that probation. Court records show he was arrested for criminal mischief after allegedly vandalizing several vehicles. For the young girl and her family, the consequences go far beyond Bosch's probation. Attorneys say she now suffers from severe psychological trauma. Nightmares, flashbacks, and constant anxiety are part of her daily life. She is only 16 today, but she lives in fear of seeing the man who hurt her again. This was entirely preventable, attorney Evan Robinson said when the lawsuit was filed. We obtained records from the state attorney's office, indicating that just weeks before the incident, Mr. Bosch had entered the gym screaming at the top of his lungs, challenging other members to fight him. The lawsuit argues that LA Fitness knew Bosch had a history of violent and erratic behavior inside the gym. Witnesses had already reported him. Employees had warned him. Yet his membership was never revoked, and his access to the facility was never restricted. That is why the family has filed a civil lawsuit against the owners of LA Fitness, seeking more than $5 million in damages. Their case is about more than money. It is about holding a major company accountable for failing to act when warning signs were right in front of them. This young girl should have been protected, Robinson said. Instead, she was left vulnerable in a place where she should have been safe. The details are disturbing, but they also shine a light on a broader issue. Gyms often market themselves as safe spaces for health, community, and routine. They are filled with cameras, staff members, and rules. Yet this incident highlights how even small failures, a broken security camera in the boxing room, inattentive staff, or ignoring prior complaints can open the door to tragedy. The victim's parents say they trusted the gym. They believed their daughter could work out with friends while they took care of other responsibilities. That trust was broken the moment Bosch was allowed to move freely through the facility despite his previous outbursts. The family's attorneys also point out that at least one employee admitted to noticing Bosch following the girl on the day of the attack. Still, no action was taken to intervene before it escalated. The trauma left behind has been devastating. At an age when most teenagers are focused on school, friendships, and discovering who they are, this girl is forced to process fear and violation. Post-traumatic stress disorder is not a short-term injury. It shapes how she sees the world and how she experiences everyday life. For the attorneys at Leesfield and Partners, this case is part of a larger fight. The firm has a history of representing survivors of sexual violence against businesses, schools, churches, and other organizations. Their goal is to use civil law, not just to compensate victims, but to pressure institutions to improve safety standards. In this case, they argue, LA Fitness could have easily acted. A single decision to revoke Bosch's membership after his earlier outburst might have prevented the assault entirely. Attorneys for LA Fitness have so far declined to comment, citing ongoing litigation. It is a standard response, but one that offers little comfort to a family who feels the company's silence speaks volumes. Meanwhile, Bosch's behavior after the plea deal reinforces what the victim's parents feared. Probation was not enough. His arrest for criminal mischief only 2 years later shows a pattern of instability that might have been obvious to anyone reviewing his record of conduct. For the family, the lawsuit is also about sending a message to other corporations. When warning signs are ignored, when dangerous individuals are allowed to remain in environments with minors, the consequences are not abstract, they are painfully real. At the heart of this case is a teenager who simply wanted to exercise with her friends. She walked into a gym in May of 2023, expecting safety. Instead, she walked out with trauma that will take years to heal. Her story is not just about one man's actions. It is about a system that allowed him to remain in a space where he could cause harm. It is about accountability, responsibility, and the cost of ignoring red flags. The civil trial will take time, whether it ends in a settlement or goes before a jury. The outcome could set an important precedent for how gyms and similar businesses handle members with histories of aggression. Until then, the young girl continues her recovery. Her family continues to fight, and her attorneys continue to push the message that what happened inside that Miami gym should never happen again. Because no child should be forced to carry the weight of such trauma, and no business should be allowed to hide behind silence when lives are forever changed under their watch. Before we go any further, I just want to ask you for a small favor. If you're enjoying the video so far, please give it a like. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time. We recently hit 100,000 subscribers, and that's all thanks to you. Our 100K special surprise was revealed, and we had many positive responses from you. Our next goal is to hit 200K before the year ends. It feels impossible, but hey, it's free to dream, right? Also, there's a hidden word somewhere in this video for you. Let's see if you can find it. Now, back to the video. It was June of 2023, a day that seemed no different from countless others. A woman in Irvine, California, walked into a storage facility she had visited before. She carried the same expectations anyone would have when going to a public place: a quick errand, a sense of normalcy, and most importantly, safety. But what unfolded inside the elevator of that building would leave her shaken for life, a stark reminder of how suddenly everyday spaces can turn dangerous. She pressed the call button and waited. The elevator doors opened with the familiar ding. She stepped inside, expecting nothing more than a brief ride to her floor. Then, in those few seconds before the doors slid shut, another person entered. He was later identified as 26-year-old Rafael Cortez from Los Angeles. Surveillance footage shows the two walking in together, an unremarkable image that gave no clue of the violence about to erupt. The woman later told KCBS television what happened next. "He just snapped and attacked me." The phrase alone captures the shock of the moment. There was no warning, no build-up. As soon as the doors closed, the confined space became a trap. Cortez shoved her hard against the elevator wall. The sudden force stunned her. In an instant, what was a routine day became a fight for survival. "I realized I was about to get killed or raped," she said. It was the terrifying clarity of someone facing mortal danger.
I realized, I'm about to get killed or raped.
The attack escalated quickly. Cortez reached for her sports bra, ripping it away until her chest was exposed. He grabbed her, both hands latched on, refusing to let go. His grip was violent and invasive, reducing her space to breathe or move. In those moments, the small box of the elevator seemed to close in even further, each second stretching into eternity. But fear was not her only response. Instinct kicked in. She fought back. She hit him with everything she had. That single act of defiance changed the rhythm of the assault. Cortez responded by swinging wildly, fists flailing in what she described as a windmill-style attack. Suddenly, the elevator was not just a place of restraint, but a battleground. Two figures locked in a frantic, desperate fight, each struggling for control of a space no larger than a small room. Outside the elevator, Cameras caught none of the brutality happening within, but they did capture what happened when the doors opened. The footage shows her following him out, still trying to protect herself, still caught in the chaos. She carried pepper spray, a measure of precaution many women take. In her panic, she tried to use it, but she could not get the safety latch off. That one small detail, seconds lost struggling with the mechanism, shows the cruel reality of such encounters. Even when prepared, the speed of an attack can overwhelm. The fight spilled into the hallway. She screamed. She resisted. And finally, after what felt like an eternity, the confrontation ended. Cortez fled. She was left shaken, bruised, and traumatized, but alive. "I can't say what I did was right or wrong," she later said, "but I can say that I am here." Those words carry weight. They reflect the uncertainty survivors often feel after fighting back. Did I do enough? Did I make the right choices? Yet the fact remained. She survived because she refused to give in. Police in Irvine moved quickly. With video evidence and her detailed testimony, they identified Rafael Cortez. He was arrested and charged with felony sexual battery, assault and battery, and false imprisonment. For the woman, the arrest brought a measure of relief. She had looked her attacker in the eye and lived to tell her story. Now justice was moving forward. But survival is only the beginning. What comes after, the emotional scars, the sleepless nights, the sense of hypervigilance, is often just as difficult. In interviews, she spoke openly about the lessons she wanted others to learn. "There are so many things about how you protect yourself in those situations," she said. "I want women to know the right things to do." Her voice carried not just pain, but a determination to make her story count. This case also exposed deeper questions about safety in public facilities. Elevators are confined spaces. Once the doors close, there is no easy escape. Security experts warn that such areas must be equipped with surveillance cameras and staff awareness. In this case, the cameras outside caught Cortez and the victim entering, but there was no camera inside to document the assault. That gap highlights a vulnerability countless people face daily. The incident struck a nerve far beyond California. Across the United States and around the world, stories of women being followed, harassed, and attacked in public spaces have become alarmingly familiar. This was not an isolated case. It was part of a larger epidemic of stalking and predatory behavior that thrives when institutions fail to anticipate the danger. The brazenness of the attack is what shocked many people. This was not a dark alley at midnight. This was a public storage facility, in daylight, with surveillance cameras just outside. Yet Cortez still struck. It reveals the chilling truth. Predators rely on surprise, on the moments when victims least expect it, and on the assumption that bystanders will not intervene. When the story broke, many asked the same question: how could something like this happen in such a place? But survivors know the answer all too well. Attacks do not announce themselves. They happen in gyms, offices, parking garages, storage units. They happen in places we trust. For the victim, the scars of that day remain. She described the sheer terror of knowing she might not survive. She spoke of the fight inside the elevator, as though replaying a nightmare. And yet, in telling her story, she reclaimed power. She refused to let her attacker define her. She refused to be silent. Cortez now faces the weight of the law. His arrest and the charges filed against him show that accountability is possible. But for the woman, justice is not only about a prison sentence. It is about awareness, prevention, and making sure no one else has to live through what she endured. Her case sparked wider conversations about safety measures in buildings like storage facilities. Should all elevators have cameras? Should staff receive better training to spot suspicious behavior? These are questions still being debated, but her survival has already changed the conversation. In the end, what makes this story resonate is not just the horror of the attack, but the courage of the survivor. She faced a moment that could have ended her life. She fought back. She told her story. And by doing so, she turned an act of violence into a call for awareness and change. Her final words remain the most powerful. "I can't say what I did was right or wrong, but I can say that I am here." It is a statement of survival, a reminder of resilience, and a message to countless others. Sometimes the act of being here, still alive, still standing, still speaking, is itself the greatest victory. In the summer of 1990, in the small town of Dickinson, Texas, 8-year-old Jennifer Shute was enjoying her school break. She was bright, loved to read, and had just finished the 2nd grade. Like many children her age, She was sometimes afraid of the dark, so she often slept in her mother's room at night. On the night of August the 9th, Jennifer was restless. Her mother needed rest before work the next morning, so she gently asked Jennifer if she could sleep in her own bed that evening. Jennifer agreed, replying sweetly, "Just because I love you, Mom, I'll sleep in my own room tonight." It was a simple promise, but one that would change her life forever. Jennifer turned on her bedside lamp, which was shaped like a giant light bulb, and read until she felt tired. Soon, she drifted off to sleep, safe in the comfort of her home. But later that night, her world turned upside down. Jennifer awoke to find herself being carried by an unknown man. At first, he tried to reassure her by saying he was a police officer. She wanted to believe him, but her instincts told her otherwise. Only days before, she had learned at school about the dangers of strangers, and in that moment, those lessons echoed in her mind. The man drove her to the parking lot of her elementary school, telling her that her mother would be arriving soon. Jennifer waited anxiously, but no car ever came. Instead, he drove her to a deserted gravel road and into a nearby field. What happened next was a blur of fear and confusion. Jennifer remembered asking questions, trying to understand what was happening, but the answers only frightened her more. Eventually, she lost consciousness. When she woke again, she was lying in the tall grass of the field, injured and alone. The man was gone. Jennifer, only 8 years old, realized she couldn't move or call for help. She lay helpless through the long night. To make matters worse, her body had been left on top of a fire ant mound. The stings from the ants caused her to drift in and out of awareness, but they also kept her alive, forcing her to keep waking up instead of slipping away completely. Meanwhile, on the morning of August the 10th, Jennifer's mother entered her daughter's bedroom and found the window open. Her child was missing. Terrified, she called police. The Dickinson Police Department was small, but they quickly organized search parties with firefighters and volunteers. For hours, they combed through the nearby fields. Miraculously, by evening, children playing in a field stumbled across Jennifer. One of them tripped over her foot, thinking at first she was a playmate hiding in the grass. Instead, they discovered she was badly hurt and barely conscious. An officer knelt beside her and whispered, "You've been found and you're going to be okay. Stay with me." She was airlifted by helicopter to the hospital. Doctors discovered her throat had been severely injured, but against all odds, she survived. At first, Jennifer couldn't speak. She was terrified of everyone around her, especially men, because her attacker had claimed to be a police officer. But Jennifer found a way to communicate. She began writing notes for her mother, who passed them along to investigators. What she wrote astonished detectives. Despite her age and the trauma she had endured, Jennifer remembered incredible details. She recalled that the man had introduced himself with a name. She described what he looked like. She even described his car, noting dents on the side, the colors and items inside. She remembered brands, objects, and even small details that most adults would have missed. But even with her brave testimony, years passed and the case grew cold. No suspect was ever caught. Jennifer grew up carrying the weight of her childhood trauma. She developed a fear of being alone, especially at night, and she struggled to trust men. Yet she pushed forward with her life. She graduated high school, went to college, and eventually became a children's librarian, pouring her energy into helping kids discover the same joy of reading that she had loved as a child. Her case remained unsolved for nearly 2 decades, until advances in DNA technology gave investigators new hope. In January of 2008, Detective Tim Cromie of the Dickinson Police Department and FBI agent Richard Renison reopened Jennifer's file. They sent 4 pieces of evidence from the case to the FBI lab for testing. 19 years after the crime, at 2:30 in the morning, Agent Renison received the call they had been waiting for. The DNA matched a man named Dennis Earl Bradford. Bradford was no stranger to the justice system. In 1996, he had been convicted of kidnapping and assaulting a woman in Arkansas. He was sentenced to 12 years in prison, but served only 4. By 2000, he was free. He married, had children of his own, and worked as a welder, living what appeared to be a normal life. When investigators compared Bradford's driver's license photo from around the time of Jennifer's attack with the old police sketch, the resemblance was undeniable. They finally had their suspect. In 2009, Bradford was arrested. When he faced interrogations, he was shocked to know that she's still alive and started crying.
She's alive. She's alive. She's alive.
Prosecutors prepared for trial, confident that DNA evidence and Jennifer's testimony would ensure justice. Bradford's attorney even suggested he would plead guilty rather than go through a lengthy court case. They scheduled the hearing for August 10th, exactly 20 years to the day since Jennifer's attack. But before that date arrived, Bradford took his own life in his jail cell in April of 2010. For Jennifer, it was a bittersweet ending. She had waited 20 years for justice, and while her attacker would never face a courtroom, she at least knew his name and the truth about what had happened. On August 10th, 2010, Jennifer visited his grave. She read aloud her victim impact statement, wondering if he could hear her words. At that very moment, an ant bit her leg. She took it as a sign, a reminder of the ants that had kept her alive 2 decades earlier, and a symbol that he had heard her loud and clear. Despite doctors once telling her that she would never be able to have children, Jennifer went on to defy the odds. She became a mother to a daughter and a son. Today, she uses her voice and her story to advocate for other survivors of violent crime, turning her pain into power. Jennifer Schuett's story is both heartbreaking and inspiring. She was just an 8-year-old child left alone in a field, but she refused to give up. She remembered every detail. She fought to survive, and she lived to see her attacker identified. Her life today is not defined by that one night, but by the courage she has shown ever since. She is a reminder that even in the darkest circumstances, resilience and hope can still shine through. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon in Pomona, California. The date was ordinary, but what happened inside a small business on South Gary Avenue was anything but. The streets outside carried the usual weekend energy, with families coming in and out of shops, people picking up food, and others just going about their errands. Inside one registration and insurance office, however, something unfolded that would later be replayed on news broadcasts and surveillance footage again and again. The worker at the center of it all was Concepcion Escalante, a woman known by friends and family for her strong personality and confidence. She never imagined that her shift that day would turn into a life-threatening encounter with a stranger who walked through her doors twice. The second time with a very different intention. The first time the man came in, around 20 minutes before the struggle, he seemed completely normal. He asked questions about how to get his car registered, spoke politely, and even smiled. Escalante later recalled how he seemed almost overly nice, giving no signs of anger or hostility. At that point, he told her he did not have his license with him and would have to return later. She thought nothing of it. People come and go all the time with half-finished errands. But when he returned, the energy was completely different. Escalante said the moment he walked in, she sensed something was wrong. This time, he moved quickly, almost running into the shop. His face no longer carried that friendly smile. Instead, she saw anger and determination. Before she could process what was happening, he pulled out a large knife. For many people, that would be the moment to freeze or hand over whatever he wanted. Escalante, however, reacted in a way even she later admitted was surprising. She described herself as more aggressive than most, and in that instant her instinct was to fight back rather than surrender. She launched herself at the man, trying to push him away and protect herself. She remembered her hands flying up, aiming to defend her body, and even trying to go for his eyes in the middle of the struggle. He responded by grabbing her hair and forcing her downward, and the two were locked in a terrifying fight inside that small office. The struggle lasted for almost a full minute, though for Escalante it felt much longer. The two moved around the small space, knocking items to the ground, each one trying to overpower the other. She was outmatched in strength. She admitted later that the man was stronger than she expected, but what she lacked in power, she made up for in determination. During the fight, some cash fell to the floor. The man eventually grabbed the money, released his grip, and ran out of the office. The surveillance cameras recorded everything, including the final moments where Escalante, shaken but still standing, looked after him as he bolted through the front door. Within minutes, employees at a nearby pizza restaurant ran over. After hearing the commotion, they rushed in to check on her, and one of them dialed 911. The Pomona police arrived in less than 5 minutes, but by that time the man was already gone, disappearing into the streets with only a few $100s, and the memory of a fight that did not go as smoothly as he likely imagined. Escalante later spoke to reporters about the ordeal. She explained that while she chose to defend herself, she would not recommend others take the same route. She urged that in most cases it is better to hand over the money than to risk serious injury. For her, the instinct to fight was immediate, born from her personality and her refusal to let the man think she would be an easy target. Police reviewed the surveillance video carefully. The images captured a clear view of the suspect, described as a skinny man, possibly in his mid-50s. Escalante said he looked clean, healthy, and not like someone struggling with drugs or homelessness. He had walked into her business earlier that day, looking like any other customer. The difference came in his second visit, where he turned violent and unpredictable. The video was released to the public, and Escalante hoped that someone would recognize him. She insisted that someone had to know who he was, and that recognition could bring him to justice. What makes this story striking is not just the attempted robbery itself, but the bravery and survival instinct Escalante displayed. Most people confronted with a weapon in such close quarters might have panicked, but she fought with every ounce of energy she had. She later admitted that in the middle of the fight she thought about her life flashing before her eyes. She feared she might be killed or severely harmed. Those thoughts fueled her to resist even harder. The incident also raised questions about safety in small businesses. Many independent shops and offices like hers do not have security guards. Often there is only one person working, which makes them vulnerable. The surveillance camera provided vital evidence afterward, but in the heat of the moment, Escalante was on her own. Her case became an example for discussions about how employees should react when faced with danger. Police and safety experts remind the public that money can be replaced but lives cannot. Still, Escalante's actions showed that survival instincts are unpredictable. She fought because in that moment she felt she had no other choice. In the days following the incident, the community rallied around her. Many called her brave and fearless. Others urged caution, reminding that the outcome could have been worse. Escalante herself reflected on what happened, saying she was grateful to be alive, grateful that the struggle did not end differently, and hopeful that the man would be caught. The suspect, despite being caught on camera, managed to escape that afternoon. Police encouraged the public to study the footage and report any leads. His face, body type, and behavior were all visible, and officers hoped that someone in the Pomona area would recognize him. Escalante returned to work soon after, refusing to let fear drive her away from her job. She admitted that she still felt shaken, but she also carried a sense of pride that she survived. She laughed nervously when she told reporters she was more aggressive than the average person. That laughter masked the real terror of the experience, but it also showed her resilience. The story of Concepcion Escalante is not just a crime report. It is a reminder of the unpredictable nature of life. In a moment when everything seemed normal, danger appeared without warning. Her decision to fight, her ability to survive, and her determination to move forward afterward turned her into a symbol of strength for her community. As of now, the man who walked into that Pomona office remains a suspect on the run, his image frozen in surveillance footage and in the memories of those who watched the struggle unfold. But Escalante's story continues to echo, reminding us of the importance of security, the unpredictability of human behavior, and the remarkable courage it sometimes takes just to make it out alive. It was a quiet evening in Arcadia, California, a suburban city about 20 miles from downtown Los Angeles. The streets were calm, homes lined with trimmed hedges, and porch lights glowing faintly in the dark. For one woman, however, the night became a terrifying fight for her life, all captured by the unblinking eye of a doorbell camera. The video begins with a frantic woman rushing toward a neighbor's front door. She is desperate, pounding and calling out, seeking safety in the only place she can find. She hopes the porch light and the doorbell camera mean protection, but before she can be let inside, a man suddenly appears out of the shadows. He lunges forward, grabs her violently by the hair, and yanks her backward with brutal force. The woman screams in agony as he drags her off the porch. Her cries echo through the neighborhood, piercing the stillness of the night. Neighbors who heard it later described it as the kind of scream that makes your blood run cold. The man's grip never loosens. He pulls her down the steps, determined to keep her under his control. As the struggle continues, the footage reveals something even more chilling. Witnesses said the man stomped on her, yanking her by the hair again and again. A neighbor who saw the incident from a side window recalled the horror. He said he watched helplessly as the man attacked the woman with a level of rage that was difficult to comprehend. The entire ordeal was captured on the doorbell camera. That small device, often used just to monitor deliveries and visitors, suddenly became the most critical piece of evidence in a violent assault. The homeowner who owned the camera immediately turned the footage over to police, setting in motion a search that would reveal something even darker. Police officers responded quickly, canvassing the area and searching the neighborhood. They soon found the woman, not out in the street but being held captive inside a house just around the corner. She was terrified, bruised, and injured. The man who had dragged her from the porch was identified as Robert Mendez, her estranged boyfriend. Investigators said the case was not random. It was not a stranger leaping out from the dark. Instead, it was a man who once shared a relationship with the woman, and who now used that history as a weapon to justify his violence. He was arrested and charged with suspicion of attempted murder and kidnapping, charges that reflect the severity of what unfolded on that porch. Police confirmed that the woman had suffered multiple injuries. They described how she was beaten, stomped on, and dragged. Her condition was serious enough that she needed immediate medical treatment, though thankfully doctors said she was expected to recover fully. Even so, the psychological trauma of being attacked so violently by someone she once trusted will likely remain with her far longer than the bruises on her skin. This case is a stark reminder of how technology can serve as both a witness and a lifeline. The doorbell camera did not just capture the attack, it ensured that there was undeniable evidence of what took place. Without it, the woman's screams might have been dismissed as a domestic dispute, her story brushed aside as just another argument between partners. With it, however, there was proof, harsh, raw, and impossible to ignore. The footage also highlights something chilling about stalking and intimate partner violence. Victims often know their attackers. The threat comes not from strangers lurking in the shadows, but from people who were once part of their daily lives. Robert Mendez was not a faceless figure. He was her estranged boyfriend, someone she knew well enough to have once shared her trust and perhaps even her love. That betrayal made the violence all the more terrifying. Neighbors in Arcadia were shaken. To see such brutality play out just steps from their own doors left many feeling unsettled and vulnerable. One resident described how he could not sleep after hearing the screams replay in his head. Another said that she had always thought of her neighborhood as safe, but watching the footage forced her to rethink what safety really meant. Domestic violence advocates pointed out that this was far from an isolated incident. Across the United States, thousands of women each year are stalked, attacked, or killed by current or former partners. What made this case stand out was the graphic clarity of the doorbell footage. It showed not just the violence itself, but the sheer desperation of a woman trying to escape, and the cold determination of a man intent on controlling her. Police praised the homeowner who shared the video immediately, saying that cooperation allowed them to find the victim quickly before the situation became even worse. They emphasized that community involvement and evidence like this can make the difference between life and death in cases of domestic violence. Robert Mendez's arrest brought some relief, but it also raised urgent questions. How many warning signs had there been before this night? Did the woman already fear him enough to keep her distance? Were there opportunities for intervention that were missed? These questions echo far beyond Arcadia, touching on the broader challenge of how to protect victims from abusers who refuse to let go. The woman's survival is extraordinary, given the brutality she endured. In interviews, police said she showed immense strength, even as she suffered multiple injuries. They confirmed that she would need time to heal, but reassured the public that she would make a full recovery. Her ability to hold on until police arrived is a testament to her resilience, but it should not have been necessary. No one should have to fight for their life on a neighbor's porch. The story spread quickly across news outlets. The images replayed over and over. Each time viewers saw the woman dragged by her hair, each time they heard her screams, it left an impression that is hard to erase. For many, it became a wake-up call about the hidden dangers of intimate partner violence and the importance of paying attention to the cries for help that often go unheard. As of now, Robert Mendez faces charges that could put him behind bars for years. Attempted murder and kidnapping are among the most serious charges that can be brought in cases like this. Prosecutors will rely heavily on the doorbell footage, the eyewitness accounts, and the victim's own testimony to make the case airtight. The victim, meanwhile, faces a different kind of trial. Healing from the trauma of such an attack takes time. Even with physical recovery, the memories and fear can linger, shaping every interaction, every decision, every quiet night when the shadows feel too close. Yet her survival and her courage to endure offer hope that she will find strength in reclaiming her life. The Arcadia attack is disturbing, heartbreaking, and unforgettable, but it is also a story about resilience. about the way a community can come together, and about the importance of tools like doorbell cameras in holding violent offenders accountable. Above all, it is a reminder that behind every headline and every viral video is a real person whose screams for help must never be ignored. It was a warm evening in Salt Lake City, Utah, and Cherokee Broderson was just a few blocks away from home. She was heading out to enjoy a live band, a night meant for laughter, music, and relaxation. But what began as an ordinary walk soon became the most terrifying ordeal of her life. She had no idea that a stranger was watching her steps, waiting for the right moment to strike. As Cherokee made her way down the street, a man she had never seen before walked up beside her. He was pushy and intrusive, asking her out on a date in a way that made her uncomfortable. She tried to ignore him, brushing it off as another unwanted advance, but her refusal triggered something darker. Instead of walking away, the stranger escalated. He pulled out a gun, pressed it against her chest, and barked out his demand, "Get in the car." For a split second, everything froze. The air was heavy with fear, but Cherokee's instincts kicked in. She knew exactly what that order meant. If she got into that car, she might never come back. She looked him in the eye and made her choice. "You're just going to have to shoot me," she told him firmly.
I just said, "You're gonna have to shoot me, as I'm not getting in the car with you."
"Because I'm not going to get in the car with you." It was a moment of pure defiance, and it stunned her attacker. He raised the gun and fired into the air, a deafening shot that echoed through the street. It was meant to intimidate her, to break her will. Instead, it only fueled her determination to resist. Then came the struggle. The man lunged at Cherokee, hitting her with the pistol in a vicious blow to the head. The impact sent her stumbling, but she did not give in. She fell to the ground and screamed as loud as she could, desperate to draw attention, desperate to survive. Each scream carried across the neighborhood, cutting through the night. The attacker tried to silence her, dragging her, striking her, but Cherokee refused to stop. She knew the noise was her only weapon, her only chance of scaring him off. The fight seemed endless. She was outmatched in strength, but not in spirit. She thrashed, resisted, and continued to scream. Finally, the man realized he was not going to win. The risk of being caught was too high. Frustrated and exhausted, he bolted into the darkness, leaving Cherokee battered but alive on the sidewalk. "I feel like I was just too much work for him," Cherokee later said in an interview.
So I just laid on the ground, and then he started dragging me, and a car started coming at the right time. And he ran and got in his car.
"It was already scary enough, but I knew getting into that car would have been worse. That would have been the end." Her words revealed the cold calculation she made in the heat of terror. She understood, even in that split second, that compliance would not save her. Resistance was her only option. Neighbors later recalled hearing the gunshot and her screams. Some peeked out from behind curtains, unsure of what was happening. Others said they were too afraid to step outside. In the chaos, Cherokee was left to fight on her own, until the predator finally gave up. When the ordeal ended, she was shaken and bruised, but alive. She sat on the pavement, breathing heavily, trying to process what had just happened. Relief washed over her, but it was mixed with anger and fear. This attack did not happen in a secluded alley far from home. It happened just 2 blocks from her own front door. The place where she should have felt safest had suddenly turned into a hunting ground. Cherokee is an interior designer by profession, someone used to creating spaces that feel secure, welcoming, and comfortable. That night shattered her own sense of security. Her thoughts immediately turned to the future. "I think he's just going to do it again," she admitted, because he didn't get what he wanted. Her fear was not just for herself, but for other women in her community. If he was bold enough to attack her on a public street, so close to homes and neighbors, then he could easily do the same thing to someone else. Police were quickly called, and the details of the attack were documented. The suspect was described as aggressive, reckless, and willing to use violence to control his victim. The gunshot into the air was not just intimidation. It was a warning of how far he was prepared to go. For Cherokee, survival came down to 3 things: her refusal to enter the car, her determination to fight back, and her relentless screams for help. Each of those decisions likely saved her life. Her story struck a chord far beyond Salt Lake City. News outlets across the country reported on her courage, framing it as an example of survival against the odds. But Cherokee herself does not glorify what happened. She admits she was terrified. She admits she was injured. And she knows the outcome could have been very different. Her case serves as both a warning and an inspiration. The warning is clear. Predators can strike anywhere, even in the places we feel most comfortable. The inspiration lies in Cherokee's strength, in her ability to face fear head-on and refuse to be taken. Today, she continues to process the trauma of that night. Post-traumatic stress is common after such violent encounters. Nightmares, flashbacks, and sudden fear can haunt survivors long after the bruises have healed. Cherokee has spoken openly about her determination to recover, to move forward, and to reclaim her sense of safety. Community leaders and women's safety advocates point to her story as a reminder of why self-defense and awareness matter. While no victim is ever to blame, being prepared to resist or create a scene can sometimes be the difference between life and death. Cherokee's screams drew attention, and her refusal to comply forced her attacker to retreat. The broader issue of violence against women is impossible to ignore. Statistics show that thousands of women across the United States face similar threats every year, often at the hands of strangers who target them at random. These stories, when caught on video or reported in the news, highlight not just the horror of the attack, but the resilience of survivors. Cherokee's ordeal remains deeply unsettling. A night meant for music and entertainment turned into a desperate struggle on a city sidewalk. Yet in the darkest moment, she found a strength she did not know she had. "I knew it would just all be over if I got in that car," she said. Those words echo the reality that many victims face. The decision to resist can be terrifying, but sometimes it is the only choice left. For now, Cherokee's survival is a testament to her courage, but also a call to action for the community to ensure that no one else has to endure what she went through. Awareness, security, and accountability are the first steps in preventing the next attack. Her story may have begun with fear, but it ends with resilience. Cherokee Broderson was targeted by a predator, but she proved she was not an easy victim. She fought, she screamed, and she survived. And in doing so, she became a voice for every woman who has ever walked down a street at night and wondered if someone was following behind. With this last chilling case, we've reached the end of today's episode. If you found this deep dive eye-opening, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We drop videos like this almost every day, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. If you can't wait until the next upload, more videos will pop up on your screen in just a few seconds. I'll catch you over there. I'm out.